Hello children, let me welcome you to the virtual class of the Brihan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika. My name is Shraddha teacher. Children, we are in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic, and because of that we are not able to go to school, but that doesn't mean we are going to stop learning. So we are going to do many lessons which are very interesting from your textbook through the virtual class here. So let us do a lesson in English today.
Our lesson for today, children, will be a lesson in Standard 9th English. And since we have already wrapped up our portion for the first term, we will do a general lesson in grammar, children, today. And the name of the lesson is Figures of Speech. Now, children, whenever you have started learning English, right from Standard 1 onwards, we have been learning prose and poetry in English, isn't it? And when it comes to poetry, there is a very important part of poetry which we started learning when we came to the 7th and the 8th standards, and that is figures of speech. So this is something which you can find in the general text also in the prose, but this is a special feature of our poetry lessons. So whenever you learn a poem, there you learn many figures of speech. So now what are figures of speech, children? We have learnt earlier. We have learnt that there are many different types of figures of speech also. And some of the types are commonly used in our English lessons. So today, as a part of revision of this grammar point, let us look at certain figures of speech in detail. So come on, let's see which are the figures of speech that we are going to talk about today, and also let us see what are the figures of speeches. So figure of speech is what? It is just something which is added to the lines by the poets. Okay, so when the poets, when they write poems, they include some kind of a factor in the poems which will make the poems more interesting. So these factors are called as the figures of speech. So there are various figures of speech that we talk about. So let us look at some common ones which we find in our textbooks. So we have simile, okay, then we have personification, we have irony, and I'm sure as I'm calling out the names or as I'm saying the names, you will be able to recall something or the other about all of these words, because we have been learning them in most of the poems that we have been doing since Standard 8th. Okay, then you have irony, you have onomatopoeia, you have metaphor, you have hyperbole, pun, and alliteration. So these are the more commonly used figures of speech, okay, we find in our textbooks. There are many others also, children. If you learn English on a higher level, that is when you go to the college and when you learn English as your special subject, you will see that there are many more figures of speech also that you will be able to learn. So today we will try to look at some of these figures of speech, alright? But before we move on and try to understand what each of these figures of speech mean, let us understand the general meaning of figures of speech. I just told you what are figures of speech. Figures of speech is a kind of a technique which is used by poets in order to give special meaning or in order to make their poetry more attractive. So let's read the meaning of figure of speech from this page. So a figure of speech is a use of a word that diverges from its normal meaning. Diverges from its normal meaning means when you say clouds in ordinary language, it means the clouds that you can see in the sky. Okay, but in poems sometimes you must have found words like clouds of gloom. So can you actually see clouds of gloom? Gloom means what? Sadness. So sadness is something which you experience, isn't it? You do not see sadness. So when the poet says, I saw clouds of gloom, see, the meaning of the word cloud is diverging from its normal meaning, isn't it? So that is the meaning of figure of speech. So figure of speech can be use of a word, or it could also be the use of a phrase with a specialized meaning. and not based on the literal meaning of the words. So the meaning of cloud, like I told you in this example, if you try to search for the meaning of cloud in the dictionary, the meaning is different. But if you look at the example meaning of the word cloud in some poem, the meaning may be different. Okay, so it is not based on the literal meaning. Literal meaning means the meaning that you find in the dictionary. So there are many such figures of speech, like you say metaphor, okay, then you have simile, you have personification, just like we saw on the previous page. Now children, let us understand some more points about figure of speech. So why do poets use figure of speech often? They use it in order to provide emphasis. Emphasis means in order to highlight a certain line, in order to give more importance to a certain line. They also use it for freshness of expression. Now poetry is something which is supposed to be artistic, isn't it? When you read a poem, you should feel good, your mind should become fresh, you should start feeling happy. So in order to lend freshness of expression to the poem, the poets use various figures of speech, and also to give clarity to the idea that the poet wants to express. So figures of speech means all these different points. Okay children, so now we know what the meaning of these figures of speech are. We have seen the names of some of the figures of speech. So come on now, let us go and look at the figures of speech one by one. So we will try and cover at least 4 in detail today, and then I will put up another video to cover some more. Alright, so come on, let's go to the first figure of speech that we have for today. It is simile. S-I-M-I-L-E, simile. It is very, the sound is almost like the word similar, isn't it? We say simile, we say similar. So simile has got something to do with comparison. When you say these two girls look similar, so what are you doing? You're comparing their looks, isn't it? In the same way, simile also has got something to do with comparison. Alright, and simile is, remember, not the only figure of speech based on comparison. There are many other figures of speech also based on comparison, but the most commonly used ones and the most simple ones are the similes. So this is what it is, a figure of speech based on the concept of comparison. So let's see what is the simile. So a simile is a comparison between two different things using the word like or as. So when you use the word like, when you use the word as to compare two different things, then that particular sentence in the poem becomes an example of a simile. Okay? So nothing, it is very simple. Simile means comparison using like or as. And I told you this is one of the most commonly found figures of speech which you can see in the poems in your textbook. Then let us look at some examples. The sun was like a yellow marble in the sky. She has been elusive as a Sasquatch. So let us look at the first one. The sun was like a yellow marble in the sky. So see, what is the meaning of a marble? A marble is something which children play with, isn't it? Kanche. We call it kanche in Hindi. So here the sun is being compared to a yellow marble which is there in the sky. Alright, so see, this is an example of simile because the word like has been used here. And the comparison is being made to the sun in the sky with a yellow marble. Look at the next one. She has been as elusive as a Sasquatch. Now what is a Sasquatch, you might wonder? It is actually an animal. Okay, Sasquatch is an animal. Now this animal, Sasquatch, some people say it is there, some people say it is not there. Some people say we have seen a Sasquatch. Some people say no, the Sasquatch is only a figment of imagination, that it is something that we have imagined. It is actually not there in existence. So it is something which is very elusive. Elusive means you can see it, you cannot see it, and it is very, very rarely seen. Okay, it slips away very soon, so it is elusive. So this female or this lady has been compared to a Sasquatch, which is an animal which looks like an ape. See here, an ape-like animal. Okay, it is the Sasquatch. So now see, what have we done? We have used words like to compare the sun with the marble. We have used words as to compare her with an animal which is elusive. So that is why simile means what? It is just comparison between two things using the words like or as. Okay? Moving on, let us look at some more examples of simile, and we are going to look at them in two different columns. We are going to look at examples with like first and then examples with as second, later. So it will be easier for you to understand. So come on, let us look at some examples using as first. So we have solid as a rock, quick as a wind, big as a bus, tall as a giraffe, wise as an owl, cold as winter, hot as desert, shiny as gold. So what are we doing? We are comparing something. We don't know what. Maybe solid. Maybe you're talking about someone's support. His support is as solid as a rock. So like rocks are solid, they do not move from their place. So you're comparing something with the quality of the rock. Okay, in the same way you're comparing someone's agility or quickness to that of wind. You're comparing someone's size to that of the size of a bus. You're comparing someone's height to the height of a giraffe. So you can see all the sentences are using, all the phrases are using the word as. Alright, so all these are examples of simile. Moving on, let us look at some examples with the word like. So here they are: cry like a baby, grow like a weed, smell like a flower, run like a cheetah, swim like a dolphin, shout like a horn, climb like a monkey, swim like a fish. So here you can see we are comparing two things using the word as and using the word like. And when such kind of lines come up in your poem, you can say that they are examples of the figure of speech simile. Alright, so these were all examples of simile. Now we come to the next figure of speech, metaphor. Now remember children, when I told you about simile, I told you that simile is not the only figure of speech based on comparison. There are many other figures of speech also which are based on comparison, and the second one which we are going to look at now is metaphor. So it is a figure of speech in which things are compared. So now you will say that in simile also things are compared, and metaphor also things are compared. So how do we know which is the simile and which is the metaphor? In metaphor, we say that one thing is another. We compare two things by saying that A is B. Okay, one thing A is the other thing B. Confused? Don't worry, when you look at the examples, you will come to know. See? The clouds are cotton balls in the sky. What have you done? You have compared the clouds actually to the cotton balls, but you're not saying like, you're not saying as. You're directly saying that the clouds are cotton balls in the sky. Does it actually mean that clouds are balls of cotton? No. That means we are comparing the clouds to the cotton balls. Okay, so that is why we say it is an example of a metaphor. So I hope the idea of metaphor is clear to you. And remember children, when you compare 2 points, like for example, when you compare simile with metaphor, you will understand both better. When you bring out the differences, when you want to study something, you understand them better. Okay, let's look at some more examples. So what is a metaphor? It is a claim that two things are the same and can be stated directly or implied. Okay, for example, see here, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. Now this is a poem from Shakespeare's very famous poem, All the World's a Stage. I think you will learn this poem next year when you are in the 10th standard. So all the world's a stage means you're comparing the world with the stage, and all the men are players, you're saying. So the people who are there on this earth, in this world, that is people like you and me, we are what? We are just players on the stage. We are just characters. We are just actors on the stage. Okay, so this is a very, very good example of a metaphor. See some more easy and simple examples of metaphor. That noise is music to his ears. So noise is being compared to music. He swam in a sea of diamonds. So what did he do? He swam in a sea of diamonds. Okay, so can there be a sea of diamonds? No, there can be a sea of water. But it could mean that the water was sparkling so much that it looked like diamonds. Okay? She has a heart of gold. So can someone have a heart of gold? Now what is gold? The gold is supposed to be a very pure metal. It is supposed to be a very expensive metal. It is supposed to be a very, very, you can say something which we take very good care of, something which is very precious to us. So she has a heart of gold means she has a heart of such good quality and such richness that you can compare it to gold. Okay, so these are some simple examples of metaphor. Alright children, now let's go to the next figure of speech that we have for today, that is personification. This is, I think, one of the figures of speech which I like most because I find it very interesting the way people are personified or the way things are personified. Okay, not people, the way things are personified. So this is the third figure of speech that we are learning for today. The first one was simile, the second one was a metaphor, and now let's look at the third one, that is personification. So what is personification? Giving human qualities to animals or objects is called personification. Okay, for example, the stars winked at me. So when you give some human qualities, now human beings, children, have qualities which are very, very unique, which are different from the qualities of animals or which are different from the qualities of inanimate things also. For example, when we talk about living things means human beings and animals. Human beings can smile, they can laugh. Can animals do the same? No. Human beings can move from one place to another. Can objects do it? No. Alright, so when you give these qualities of moving around or laughing or smiling to animals or to things, then we say that we are personifying them. Personification. See the example? The stars winked at me. Winked. Winking means what? Blinking just one eye is called as winking. Okay, so can the stars wink? No, because they do not have eyes at all. What do? They twinkle. Okay, they appear and they disappear. They twinkle, so you feel that they are winking. So this line where you say the stars winked at me is a very good example of personification. Let's move on and let's see some more examples. So why do you personify? Before we see the examples, let us see why poetry or poets make their poetry interesting. Why do they add personification? Personification can make things easier to imagine when you read them. So see the wind blowing, when the poet says the wind blows. So when I show you this picture, or when I say the wind blows, immediately this picture comes into your head, isn't it? The wind blowing. So when you personify something, it becomes easier to imagine it. Alright, because we have seen things We have seen human beings, and when you talk about personifying them, it becomes easier for you to see them in your minds. For example, you can't see the wind, see? But if someone wrote, the wind raged with fierce anger, you might get a better expression of how the wind blew that day. So when the wind raged means what? Got very angry. Alright. So when the wind raged means the wind must have been very fast that day. So you get a better idea how the wind must have been on that particular day. So personification just helps you to get more clarity, or just helps you to imagine things better. Let us look at some examples now. The slices of bread jumped out of the toaster suddenly, scaring me. So can this happen, children? Can the slices of bread jump out of the toaster by themselves? No. And why did he get scared? Maybe he must have been thinking about something else. Now what do you do to slices of bread? You have these pop-up toasters. This is a pop-up toaster. Okay, you push in the slices of bread, and then when they become brown, they automatically jump up. They pop up. The toaster throws them out. Okay, so see, it is a toaster which is throwing the pieces of bread out. The bread does not have any capacity of jumping out. Okay, so this sentence, the slices of bread jumped out of the toaster suddenly, and then he's also adding that it scared him. This is an example of personification. In the first place, the bread cannot jump. In the second place, the bread cannot scare anyone also. Okay, let us see one more example here. The rain was angry. You could tell just by listening to it from indoors. That means the rain was angry. Can the rain become angry, children? Does the rain have any emotion? Is the rain a living thing to get angry? Not at all. But then why are they saying it? Because the rain must have been very hard that day. Okay, there must have been a lot of thunder and lightning, and it must have been a very heavy rain. That is why they're saying the rain was angry. So this is an example of personification. Let's see one more example. Look at the garden, or look at the plants. They are out in the hot sun and they have withered actually. You must have seen this if you have a garden at home, or even if you have a potted plant at home. If you do not give it water for some days, it withers and then it dies away, isn't it? So here they are saying, one look at the garden and you could tell that the plants were begging for water. So don't you think this is little too much? Do the plants talk? Can the plants beg for water? So this is an example of personification, where you're saying that the plants were begging for water. Alright, so this was the figure of speech, personification. Let's move on and let's look at one more, and that is apostrophe. What is the meaning of apostrophe, and what are the definition of apostrophe? What are the examples of apostrophe? Come on, let's see. So apostrophe is also a very simple figure of speech. It is a figure of speech in which a person or a person who's speaking directly talks to a person who's absent or who is personified. Okay, so there is someone who is not there with you, but you're speaking to that person. Alright, that person is not present at that particular time. Or when you're talking to an object. Okay, for example, when you see your shoe lying in the middle of the room, you say, "Arey, how did you reach here?" So you're asking the shoe how the shoe reached there. So you're talking to a person which has been, you're talking to an object which has been personified. Or you can say, when you're saying, "Oh God, please help me." So whom are you talking to? You're talking to God. Can you see God there with you, around you? Okay, some people feel the presence of God, but we cannot see God there. Okay, so these are all examples of apostrophe. Let's look at one more example. Death, be not proud. Who are you talking to? You're talking to death. So is death a person whom you can talk to, or whom you can converse with, or whom you can give some instruction or advice? No. But here when you say death, be not proud. What are you doing? You are looking at an example of apostrophe, where the speaker is speaking to a person or an idea that is death, all right, which is not at all there with him. Some more examples. Roll on, blue ocean. So does it make any difference to the ocean whether you're asking it to roll on or whether you're asking it to stay still? It will still keep rolling on. So roll on, blue ocean is an example of an apostrophe. O death, be not proud. We saw it. Look at this. Busy, old, fool, unruly son, who dost thou call on us? So who is this person talking to? It's talking to the sun. Now the sun is of course present. You can see it in the sky during the day, but it is not someone whom you can talk to. And see, he's also calling the sun busy, old, fool. Unruly. Unruly means someone who doesn't have manners. Okay, the last one, like I told you, when we talk to the shoe which is lying in the middle of the room and we say, how did you reach here? In the same way, when you talk to the computer and you say, why don't you ever work, you stupid computer? So the computer doesn't work on its own. It doesn't have the capacity. You make it work. But you're talking to it as if it is a person. So this is an example of apostrophe. All right, children. See some more examples of apostrophe before we wind up for today. So, bright star, how I wish I were as steadfast as thou art. Steadfast means steady. Okay, so the person is addressing the bright star and saying that I too want to be like you. So this is an example of an apostrophe. Hello darkness, my old friend, I've come to talk to you again. So see, whom are you talking to? You're talking to darkness. An easy and very simple and clear example of apostrophe. Blue moon, you saw me standing alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. So these are some lines picked up from some poem. Here again, the person is talking to the blue moon. Alright children, so these were various examples of apostrophe. So now in today's lesson, we looked at 4 figures of speech. Alright, and like I told you before, there are so many different figures of speech. There are more than 20. But then we are not supposed to learn all of them in this high school syllabus. Okay, so we are going to learn some of them. 4 of them we've learned today. And for the remaining 4, I'll put up a video very soon. So in today's video, we talked about simile, we talked about metaphor, we talked about personification and apostrophe. We saw the meaning, the general meaning of figures of speech, and we also looked individually at the meanings of these 4 figures of speech. And of course, we also saw various examples in order to make the idea of these figures of speech clear to you.
So children, now you have watched the video. So after you watch the video now, you will have to complete a few simple tasks. Now you might have watched the video on your computers or your laptops or your mobile phones. Now after you watch the video, what will you do? You will please go to the description box which is given below the video. So what is the description box? See, the description box looks like this. Alright, and after you go to the description box, you will see that there are a few questions there. Now what are these questions about? These questions are about the lesson that we just learned or the video that you just watched. So what will you do? You will think back properly about the lesson and you will try and answer these questions. And note down the answers in your notebook if you want. Okay? After that, we have another task waiting. You will also click on the link which you will find in the description box to fill up the Google form. So now what is the Google form, children? It is nothing but a simple form There are a few simple questions there about the video which you just saw and also about yourself. So, these are the tasks now that you will have to complete after you watch each video. So children, wasn't that a very interesting lesson? I'm sure you learnt a lot of new things in this lesson. If you have liked this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my video so that you will get to see all the videos which I keep posting regularly.